Claire Bennett's hands trembled as she stared down the barrel of a gun held by the most dangerous man in Chicago. A ghost everyone believed was dead. One wrong room, one innocent mistake. That was all it took to shatter her quiet life and pull her into a world of blood, bullets, and betrayal. Nicholas DeLuca should have killed her the moment she saw his face. Instead, he let her walk away. But in his world, mercy is a luxury no one can afford. Now they're both running out of time, and the only way out might be together. If you're ready for a story of danger, sacrifice, and impossible choices, stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and comment your city so I can see how far this story travels. The master keycard felt heavier than it should have in Claire Bennett's pocket as she stepped off the service elevator onto the 42nd floor of the Sinclair Grand Hotel, her first solo shift. Her supervisor, Mrs. Chen, had delivered that news with a tight smile and a warning. The VIP suites require perfection. One complaint and you're back to changing sheets in the economy wing. Claire had nodded, swallowed her anxiety, and accepted the assignment. She needed this job. Needed it more than Mrs. Chen could possibly understand. 3 months in Chicago, living in a studio apartment smaller than most people's closets, surviving on ramen and the occasional splurge of real coffee. The Sinclair was her chance at something better, something stable. The hallway stretched before her, plush carpet muffling her footsteps, crystal sconces casting warm light against cream-colored walls. Oil paintings and gilded frames lined the corridor, landscapes of places she'd never visit, portraits of people who'd never existed. Everything here screamed wealth, the kind that was so far beyond her reach it might as well have been on another planet. She checked her tablet. Suite 4, 217, VIP guest. Do not disturb until after 2 p.m. Her watch read 2:14. Claire approached the door, knocked softly twice, then waited. The protocol was clear. Announce yourself, wait 30 seconds, knock again, then use your key if there's no response. She counted in her head, her heartbeat keeping an anxious rhythm. Knock, knock. Nothing. She swiped the MasterCard, heard the lock click, and pushed the door open. Housekeeping, she called out, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm here to... The words died in her throat. The man stepping out of the bathroom wore nothing but water droplets and a towel around his waist. That alone would have been mortifying enough, but it was everything else that turned her embarrassment into pure primal fear. Scars. God, so many scars. They traced violent patterns across his chest and abdomen, some thin and surgical, others jagged and brutal. A particularly nasty one ran from his left shoulder down to his ribs, the kind of wound that should have killed someone. But it wasn't the scars that made her blood turn to ice. It was the gun on the bathroom counter behind him, black metal gleaming under the vanity lights. Within his reach. And it was his face. Even with the scars that hadn't been there in the photographs she'd seen, because everyone had seen those photographs 3 years ago when the news ran the story, she recognized him. Nicholas DeLuca. The criminal prince who'd vanished after a bloodbath in the warehouse district left 12 men dead, and the Chicago underworld in chaos. Dead, they'd said. Burned beyond recognition in a car explosion. But dead men don't step out of luxury hotel showers. Their eyes met. His were dark, almost black, and in that moment Claire saw her death reflected in them. Not a possibility, a certainty. Wrong room? She managed, her voice cracking. I'm so sorry, Close the door. His voice was quiet, calm. Somehow that made it worse. Claire's hand found the door handle, but she couldn't make herself move. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but her legs had turned to lead. I said close the door. Still calm, still quiet. You're letting the cold air out. This time her body obeyed, but not in the way he'd intended. She stumbled backward into the hallway, her shoulder hitting the doorframe. The tablet slipped from her fingers and clattered to the floor. Please, she whispered. Please, I didn't see anything. I won't. He moved faster than she thought possible, crossing the room in 3 strides. His hand shot out, fingers closing around her wrist, and he pulled her into the suite. The door clicked shut behind her. Claire tried to scream, but no sound came out. She was going to die. Die here in this beautiful room with its marble floors and its view of Lake Michigan, and no one would know what happened to her. Just another girl who came to Chicago with dreams and disappeared into its shadows. Nicholas released her wrist and stepped back, putting space between them. He studied her with those dark, unreadable eyes, and she realized she was shaking so hard her teeth were chattering. "You're new," he said finally. "I haven't seen you before." Claire nodded, not trusting her voice. "What's your name?" Claire. Claire Bennett." "Well, Claire Bennett, you've just made a very serious mistake." He moved back to the bathroom, and she heard the sound of fabric, him pulling on clothes, she hoped. When he emerged, he wore black pants and was shrugging into a white shirt, leaving it unbuttoned. The scars were still visible, a roadmap of violence across his skin. "What suite were you supposed to service?" 4217, she managed. "This is 4227. The numbers swam in her vision. How had she misread the tablet? How had she been so stupid? "I'm sorry," she said again, the words tumbling out. "I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to. I won't tell anyone, I swear, please." "Stop." He held up a hand and she fell silent. "You're going to walk out of here. You're going to finish your shift. You're going to go home. And you're going to forget you ever saw me. Understood?" Claire stared at him, not quite believing what she was hearing. You're letting me go?" Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, maybe? Or amusement? "Did you expect something else?" "I thought everyone thinks you're dead?" He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Everyone's right, as far as they need to be concerned. That man doesn't exist anymore." "Then who are you?" "No one you need to know." He finished buttoning his shirt, his movements precise and controlled. "But I'll tell you this once, Claire Bennett. There are people who would kill you just for being in this room. People who would see you as a loose end that needs tying up. So when I tell you to forget you saw me, I'm not making a suggestion. I'm giving you a chance to live." The weight of his words settled over her like a shroud. This wasn't mercy. This was a warning. "I understand," she whispered. "Good." He moved to the door, opened it, glanced down the hallway. Empty. "Go. And Claire, next time double-check the room number." She didn't need to be told twice. Claire grabbed her tablet from where it had fallen and fled, her heart hammering against her ribs. She didn't look back, didn't stop until she reached the service elevator and the doors closed between her and that terrible room. As the elevator descended, she caught sight of her reflection in the polished metal doors. Pale face, wide eyes, hands still trembling. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. Maybe she had. Claire finished her shift on autopilot, moving through the remaining suites in a daze. Her hands changed sheets, scrubbed bathrooms, arranged fresh flowers. But her mind was 42 floors up, replaying those few terrible minutes over and over. Nicholas DeLuca was alive, and she was the only person who knew. By the time she clocked out, the Chicago twilight had painted the sky in shades of orange and purple. The city stretched out before her, vast and indifferent, swallowing her into its evening crowds as she made her way to the L station. She should have felt relief. He'd let her go. She was alive. But instead, a cold knot of dread had settled in her stomach and refused to loosen. There are people who would kill you just for being in this room. The train was crowded with the usual evening rush, businessmen in suits, students with backpacks, tired workers heading home. Claire found a seat near the back, pressed herself against the window, and tried to disappear into the anonymity of the city. That's when she noticed him. Dark jacket, baseball cap pulled low. Standing near the doors, not holding on to anything despite the train's movement. His stance was too balanced, too ready, and he was watching her. Claire's pulse kicked up. She told herself she was being paranoid, told herself that the encounter with Nicholas had put her on edge, made her see threats where there were none. But when she got off at her stop, the man in the dark jacket got off too. She walked faster, her sneakers slapping against the pavement. The familiar streets of her neighborhood suddenly felt foreign, full of shadows and places to hide. She could hear footsteps behind her, keeping pace. "You're imagining it," she told herself. "You're just scared." But when she turned the corner onto her street, she risked a glance back. The man was still there. And now there was another one, taller, broader, wearing a gray hoodie. Claire broke into a run. Her apartment was 3 blocks away. 3 blocks that suddenly felt like 3 miles. Her breath came in ragged gasps, her bag bouncing against her hip. She could hear them behind her now, not even trying to be subtle. "Hey!" one of them called out. "Hey, stop!" Like hell she would. Claire rounded another corner, nearly colliding with a woman walking her dog. She mumbled an apology and kept running, her legs burning, her lungs screaming. 2 more blocks. Just 2 more blocks. A hand grabbed her shoulder. She screamed, whirled around, swung her bag at her attacker. It connected with his face, the taller one, and he staggered back with a curse. "Crazy bitch," he spat, blood streaming from his nose. The other man, the one in the dark jacket, stepped forward. "We just want to talk. Stay away from me." Claire backed up, looking around frantically. The street wasn't empty, but no one was paying attention. This was Chicago. People minded their business. "I don't know what you want, but you were in his room," Dark Jacket said. "We need to know what you saw." "Nothing. I didn't see anything." "Then why'd you run?" Before she could answer, a black SUV pulled up to the curb, tires screeching. The back door opened and a voice she recognized cut through the night air. "Get in." Nicholas. Claire's brain couldn't process what was happening. These men were after her because of him, but now he was here, and they all seemed to freeze at his appearance. The 2 men stepped back, their aggressive postures shifting to something that looked almost like fear. "Mr. DeLuca," Dark Jacket said, "we were just—" "I know exactly what you were doing, Marcus." Nicholas's voice was ice. "I told everyone to leave her alone. Tony said she was a risk, said she needed to be handled." "Tony doesn't make those calls. I do." Nicholas looked at Claire, still pressed against the brick wall of a bodega, her chest heaving. "Get in the car, Claire." She didn't move. Going with him felt like jumping from the frying pan into the fire. "Now," he said, and this time it wasn't a request. Claire stumbled to the SUV and climbed in. The leather seats were cool against her skin. Nicholas slid in beside her, pulled the door shut, and the vehicle pulled away from the curb before she could even think about changing her mind. "Are you hurt?" he asked. "No?" Her voice sounded strange, distant. "Who were they?" "My men." His jaw tightened. "Or they were. That's going to change. They wanted to kill me." "Yes." The casual confirmation made her stomach turn. "But you said if I forgot, if I didn't tell anyone, and I meant it. But there are people in my organization who don't trust loose ends." He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. "Especially when those loose ends walk into a room they shouldn't have been in and see a face that's supposed to be dead." "I didn't tell anyone. I swear I didn't." "I believe you." He pocketed the phone. "But belief isn't currency in my world. Fear is. Control is. And right now some of my men think you're a threat that needs eliminating." Claire pressed her hand to her mouth, fighting back tears. This couldn't be happening. 24 hours ago, her biggest worry was making rent. Now she was sitting in a car with a dead man while his own people hunted her. "What happens now?" she whispered. "Now I fix this." The SUV turned onto Lakeshore Drive, the water dark and endless beside them. "I'm going to make it very clear that you're under my protection, that anyone who touches you answers to me. And that'll work?" He looked at her, and for the first time she saw something other than cold calculation in his eyes. Weariness, maybe? Or resignation? For most of them, yes. For the others, he trailed off. "What about the others?" "Let me worry about that." They drove in silence for a while, the city lights blurring past the tinted windows. Claire tried to wrap her mind around her new reality, but it kept slipping away from her, too surreal to grasp. "Why did you let me go?" she asked finally. "This morning, in the suite. You could have—" "Why didn't you?" Nicholas was quiet for a long moment. "Because you reminded me of someone who didn't deserve the life she got dealt. And because—" He paused. "Because I'm tired of people dying for no good reason." "I'm nobody," Claire said. "I'm just a housekeeper. I'm not worth all this trouble." "That's where you're wrong." He met her eyes. "You're the first person in 3 years who's seen my face and lived. That makes you worth a great deal of trouble." The SUV pulled up outside her building, a converted warehouse in a neighborhood that was trying hard to be trendy and only half succeeding. Nicholas's driver, a stone-faced man who hadn't said a word the entire trip, put the car in park. "Go inside," Nicholas said. "Pack a bag. You're not staying here tonight." "Where am I going?" "Somewhere safe. Somewhere they won't look." Claire wanted to argue, wanted to reclaim some scrap of control over her life, but she was too tired and too scared. She nodded, opened the door, stepped out into the cool night air. Claire. She turned back. I'm sorry, Nicholas said. This isn't what I wanted for you. Before she could respond, the door closed and the SUV pulled away, leaving her alone on the sidewalk with a million questions and no answers. You see, what's your routine? The next morning, Claire woke up in a king-size bed that wasn't hers, in a bedroom that looked like it belonged in an interior design magazine, in a penthouse apartment overlooking Millennium Park that definitely wasn't her cramped studio. For a moment, she thought she'd dreamed everything. Then she saw her hastily packed duffel bag by the door, and reality came crashing back. After she'd packed last night, the SUV had returned, driven by a different man this time. Older, with kind eyes and a gentle demeanor that seemed at odds with the gun she'd glimpsed beneath his jacket. He'd brought her here, to this place Nicholas apparently kept as a safe house, and left her with instructions to stay put. She'd barely slept. Now, in the harsh light of morning, Claire moved through the apartment like a ghost. The kitchen was stocked with food she didn't have the appetite to eat. The bathroom had toiletries still in their packaging, as if waiting for a guest who never arrived. Everything was beautiful and impersonal and wrong. Her phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Chen. Where are you? Your shift started 20 minutes ago. Claire stared at the message, her job, her normal life. It felt like it belonged to someone else now, someone who existed in a different world. She started to type a response, then stopped. What could she say? Sorry, I can't come in because I accidentally discovered a presumed dead Mafia boss is alive and now his own people want to kill me? Another text. Claire, if you don't respond in the next hour, I'll have to mark you as a no-call, no-show. That's grounds for termination. Her hands shook. She needed that job. Needed the money, the structure, the sense that she was building something here in Chicago. But if she went back to the Sinclair, if she tried to pretend everything was normal, the apartment door opened. Claire spun around, her heart leaping into her throat. But it was Nicholas, carrying a paper bag that smelled like coffee and pastries. He looked different in daylight, or as much daylight as filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Still dangerous, still scarred, but somehow more human. You should eat, he said, setting the bag on the kitchen counter. I should go to work, Claire countered. My supervisor is going to fire me. You can't go back there, not yet. Not yet? How long is not yet? Days? Weeks? Her voice rose, fed by fear and frustration and the desperate need to feel like she had some say in her own life. I have bills. I have responsibilities. I can't just hide here. You can, and you will. His tone left no room for argument, at least until I handle the situation. The situation. She laughed, but it came out bitter. Is that what we're calling the fact that your men want to murder me? Not all of them, just the ones who think you're a threat. Oh, well, that makes me feel so much better. Nicholas pulled 2 coffee cups from the bag, slid one across the counter to her. I know this isn't fair. I know you didn't ask for any of this. But right now, your safety depends on staying out of sight. Claire wrapped her hands around the cup, letting the warmth seep into her fingers. Why are you doing this? Protecting me, I mean. Wouldn't it be easier to just kill you? He said it so matter-of-factly, like they were discussing the weather. Yes, it would be much easier, but I told you yesterday, I'm tired of people dying for no good reason. I saw your face. That seems like a reason to your men. My men are wrong. He took a sip of his coffee. You're not a threat. You're a housekeeper who walked into the wrong room at the wrong time. That's not a crime punishable by death. Isn't it, though? In your world? He met her eyes. My world has a lot of ugly rules. That doesn't mean I have to follow all of them. They stood in silence for a moment, the only sound the distant hum of traffic far below. Claire studied him, trying to reconcile this man, who brought her coffee and spoke about protecting her, with the monster from the news stories, the criminal who'd allegedly orchestrated murders and extortion and God knew what else. Who did I remind you of? She asked quietly. Yesterday, you said I reminded you of someone. Something shifted in his expression, pain, quick and sharp, before he locked it away. My sister. She was kind like you, gentle. The underworld was no place for someone like her, but she got dragged into it anyway because of me, because I couldn't protect her from my choices. What happened to her? She died 3 years ago, same night I supposedly died. He set his cup down with careful precision. The men who killed her thought they were killing me. They were wrong. I'm sorry, Claire said, and meant it. Don't be. Just stay alive. That's all the apology I need. Before Claire could respond, Nicholas's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his jaw tightened. I have to take this. Don't leave the apartment. He stepped into the other room, his voice dropping to a murmur she couldn't make out. Claire sank onto one of the bar stools, her coffee forgotten, and tried to figure out how her life had derailed so completely in less than 48 hours. She was still sitting there when Nicholas returned, his expression grim. What is it? She asked. We have a problem, he said. One of my lieutenants is asking questions. Wants to know why I'm protecting some random hotel maid. Wants to know what you saw, what you know. I don't know anything. He doesn't believe that, and he's gathering support, talking to other people in the organization. Nicholas ran a hand through his dark hair. This is worse than I thought. What does that mean for me? It means you need to stay here, stay quiet, and stay away from the windows. I'm going to handle this, but it might take a few days. A few days trapped in this beautiful prison, while dangerous men decided whether she lived or died. Claire felt hysterical laughter building in her chest and had to bite it back. Okay, she said, because what else could she say? I'm leaving someone outside. If you need anything, he'll take care of it. But Claire? He waited until she met his eyes. Trust no one except him. No matter what they say, no matter who they claim to be. Understood? She nodded, not trusting her voice. Nicholas moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, this will be over soon, one way or another. That was supposed to be reassuring, Claire supposed. But all she heard was the underlying message. One way or another, your life will never be the same. The door closed behind him, and she was alone again. 3 days passed in a blur of anxiety and boredom. The guard Nicholas had posted, a quiet man named Marcus, who'd apparently had a change of heart after their encounter on the street, checked in periodically, but otherwise left her alone. Claire spent her time staring out at the Chicago skyline, wondering if she'd ever feel safe in this city again. On the 4th day, she made a decision. She couldn't hide forever, couldn't let fear control her life. And most importantly, she couldn't ignore the gnawing feeling that Nicholas was in more danger than he'd let on. She'd spent the last 3 days thinking about everything he'd said, every carefully chosen word. One of my lieutenants is asking questions. Not lieutenants, plural. One specific person. And the way he'd said it, the tension in his voice. Claire pulled out her phone and did something she'd been avoiding. She researched Nicholas DeLuca. The articles were easy to find. 3 years ago, they'd been everywhere. The DeLuca crime family had been one of Chicago's most powerful, controlling everything from the docks to half the restaurants in the city. And Nicholas had been the heir apparent, being groomed to take over from his aging father. Then came the bloodbath. 12 men dead in a warehouse fire. Among them, allegedly, Nicholas DeLuca and his younger sister Elena. The surviving members of the organization had scattered, some arrested, some disappearing into the shadows. The power vacuum had led to years of violence as other families fought to claim the DeLuca territory. But if Nicholas was alive, Claire's blood ran cold as the pieces fell into place. If Nicholas was alive and trying to stay hidden, and one of his old lieutenants had discovered he was in Chicago, that lieutenant wouldn't just ask questions. He'd try to eliminate the threat to his new power. Or worse, try to force Nicholas back into the organization. Either way, Claire wasn't the only one in danger. She needed to warn him. But how? She didn't have his number, didn't know where he was. All she had was Marcus outside the door, and she didn't know if she could trust him. Claire paced the apartment, her mind racing. Then she remembered. The Sinclair. Nicholas had been staying there under a false identity. If he was trying to maintain that cover, he might still go back. It was a long shot. A stupid risk. But sitting here waiting felt like giving up. She grabbed her jacket, took a deep breath, and opened the door. Marcus looked up from his phone. Miss Bennett? Everything okay? I need to go out. Mr. DeLuca said you should stay inside. I know what he said, but I need to go to the hotel. It's important. Marcus frowned. I can't let you leave. My orders are to protect me, right? Claire met his eyes. Then come with me. but I'm going either way." For a long moment, they stared at each other. Then Marcus sighed and stood up. "If this gets me killed, I'm going to be very annoyed." "Join the club," Claire muttered. The Sinclair lobby was busy with the usual afternoon crowd. Business travelers checking in, tourists asking for recommendations, wealthy guests who treated the staff like furniture. Claire felt exposed standing there in her jeans and jacket, Marcus hovering protectively nearby. Mrs. Chen spotted her immediately. "Claire, where have you been? Do you have any idea how much trouble you're in?" "I know. I'm sorry. Claire's attention was caught by a group of men across the lobby. They wore suits, moved with purpose, and something about them set off every alarm bell in her head. "Mrs. Chen, I need to ask you something. The guest in Suite 4227, is he still here?" "That's confidential information. Please, it's important." Mrs. Chen's expression softened slightly. "Mr. Morrison checked out this morning, said he wouldn't be returning. Now, about your employment." Claire wasn't listening anymore. She scanned the lobby again, and this time she recognized one of the suited men. She'd seen his face in her research, Anthony Russo, one of Nicholas's former lieutenants, the one who'd taken over significant portions of the DeLuca territory after the fire, and he was heading for the elevators with 3 other men. "Marcus," she said quietly, "we need to go, now." "What's wrong?" "Those men." She nodded toward Russo's group. "They're here for him." "How do you know?" "Because I've been doing my homework, and because—" She stopped, her breath catching. "Oh my God." She'd just remembered something Nicholas had said. "There are people in my organization who don't trust loose ends. Not people in general, people in my organization." Present tense. He'd never left. He'd been running what remained of his empire from the shadows, and now one of his own was making a move against him. Claire didn't think. She ran. "Miss Bennett," Mrs. Chen called after her, but Claire ignored her, weaving through the lobby crowd toward the service entrance. Marcus swore and followed. "Where are you going?" he demanded. "To stop a murder!" Claire hit the stairs at a run, taking them 2 at a time. Her legs burned, her lungs screamed, but she didn't slow down. 42 floors. She'd never make it in time. But she had to try, because somehow, in the span of 4 days, the scary man with the gun and the scars had become more than just a stranger who'd spared her life. He'd become someone worth saving, even if it killed her. By the 35th floor, Claire's legs were shaking so badly she had to grip the railing to stay upright. Marcus had pulled ahead, his training allowing him to take the stairs with brutal efficiency, but he kept glancing back to make sure she was still behind him. "You need to tell me what's happening," he said between breaths. "Anthony Russo," Claire gasped. "He's going after Nicholas." Marcus's face went pale. "Russo's here in the hotel?" "Saw him in the lobby. 4 men with him, heading for the elevators." "Christ." Marcus pulled out his phone, started to dial, then stopped. "If I call this in, half the people who answer work for Russo now. We're on our own." They hit the 42nd floor, and Claire yanked open the stairwell door. The hallway stretched before them, elegant and empty. Suite 4227 was at the far end, and every step toward it felt like walking toward a cliff edge. "Stay behind me," Marcus ordered, drawing his gun. Claire's heart hammered against her ribs. This was insane. She was a housekeeper from Nebraska who'd come to Chicago with dreams of something better, and now she was running toward a confrontation between armed criminals like she had any business being there. But she kept moving. They were 20 feet from the suite when they heard voices inside. Raised, angry voices. 3 years, Nick. 3 years you let us think you were dead while we tore ourselves apart fighting over the scraps. That was Russo. Claire recognized his voice from a news interview she'd watched back when she was researching. "I wanted out, Tony." Nicholas's voice, calm but edged with something dangerous. "Elena's death was my wake-up call. I was done with this life." "You don't get to be done. You're a DeLuca. You think you can just walk away from that? From us?" Marcus positioned himself beside the door, weapon ready. He looked at Claire, mouthed the word "wait," and she nodded. Inside, Russo was still talking. "I built something out of the ruins you left behind, took your territory, your contacts, your money, and made it into something that actually works. And now you think you can come back and take it all away? I'm not taking anything, Tony. I don't want it. Liar. Why else would you be in Chicago? Why else would you be running operations from the shadows? I'm not running anything. I'm tying up loose ends so I can disappear for good. A laugh, harsh and ugly. You really expect me to believe that? I don't care what you believe, but I'm giving you a chance to walk away from this. Take the Empire. Keep it. I won't interfere. Your word means nothing to me anymore. The sound of a gun cocking made Claire's blood run cold. Marcus moved before she could react, kicking the door open and raising his weapon. Drop it, Russo. Claire saw it all unfold like a nightmare in slow motion. The suite's living room had been rearranged, furniture pushed to the walls, creating an open space in the center. Nicholas stood near the windows, unarmed, his hands visible and empty. Russo and his 3 men formed a semicircle facing him, weapons drawn. When Marcus burst in, everyone turned. For one frozen heartbeat, no one moved. Then, everything went to hell. Russo's men opened fire. Marcus dove left, returning shots that shattered a crystal lamp. Claire dropped to the floor, her hands over her head, her ears ringing from the deafening gunfire. She saw Nicholas move. God, he was fast, rolling behind the overturned couch and coming up with a gun she hadn't seen him draw. Claire, get out, he shouted. But she couldn't move, couldn't do anything but press herself against the floor and pray. One of Russo's men went down, Marcus's bullet catching him in the shoulder. Another turned his weapon toward Marcus, and Nicholas fired twice. The man crumpled. You brought a witness? Russo's voice cut through the chaos. He'd taken cover behind the kitchen island, his gun trained on Nicholas. That housekeeper? The one you've been protecting? What is she? Your new weakness? She's nobody, Nicholas said. Let her go. She saw your face. That makes her everybody. Russo's smile was cruel. You always were too soft, Nick. Even when we were kids, you couldn't make the hard calls. That's why your father never really trusted you to take over. My father was a monster. I'm glad I disappointed him. And look where that got you. Dead sister, dead reputation, living like a ghost in hotel rooms, pretending you're someone else. Russo shifted his aim toward where Claire lay frozen. At least when I'm done here, you'll actually be dead. Starting with her. Nicholas's voice went flat, empty of everything except promise. Tony, if you point that gun at her for one more second, I will end you. You and what army? Marcus is your only backup, and my guys are already... The window exploded. Claire screamed as glass rained down, the sound of shattering crystal mixing with shouts of confusion. For a wild moment, she thought someone had fired a rocket launcher, but then she saw the figures rappelling through the broken window, 3 men in tactical gear moving with military precision. Federal agents, one of them shouted. Everyone on the ground now! Russo swore viciously and bolted for the door. One of his remaining men followed, but the other raised his weapon toward the agents. The lead agent fired once, clean and professional, and the man went down. Marcus was already on his feet, gun lowered, hands visible. Don't shoot! I'm on your side! Nicholas hadn't moved from behind the couch. His weapon was pointed at the floor, but Claire could see the calculation in his eyes, the split-second decision tree playing out. Run? Fight? Surrender? Nick, don't, she heard herself say. He looked at her then, really looked at her, and something in his expression shifted. Nicholas DeLuca, the lead agent said, you're under arrest for... I know what I'm under arrest for. Nicholas set his gun on the floor and kicked it away. But first, get that girl out of here. She's not part of this. We'll determine that downtown. She's a civilian caught in the crossfire. Look at her. Nicholas's voice carried an authority that made the agent pause. Does she look like she belongs in this world? The agent looked at Claire, still pressed against the floor, shaking, tears streaming down her face, and his expression softened slightly. Get her up, Williams. One of the other agents helped Claire to her feet. Her legs barely supported her weight. She could taste blood in her mouth where she'd bitten her lip. You're okay, the agent said quietly. It's over. But it wasn't over. Russo had escaped, and as the agents began securing the scene, Claire realized with growing horror what came next. Questions, statements, her name in federal databases. If Russo had gotten away, he'd know exactly who she was and what she'd done. She'd led Marcus straight to Nicholas. She'd interrupted whatever confrontation was supposed to happen. She'd made herself a target all over again. "I need to talk to him," she said to the agent holding her arm. "Please, just for a minute." "Ma'am, that's not—" "Please." Something in her voice must have gotten through to him, because he sighed and walked her over to where Nicholas sat in cuffs on the expensive couch. Two agents stood guard, but they stepped back slightly when they approached. Claire knelt down so she was eye level with him. "I'm sorry. I thought I was helping. I thought—" "You saved my life," Nicholas said simply. "What?" Tony was stalling, waiting for more men to arrive. Another 5 minutes, and we'd both be dead. He nodded toward the agents. "They were already watching the hotel. Your dramatic entrance sped up their timeline." "How do you know that?" A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "Because I called them." Claire's world tilted. "You what?" "I told you I was tying up loose ends. Tony was the biggest one." Nicholas leaned forward as much as the cuffs would allow. "I gave the FBI everything. Names, accounts, locations. Enough to dismantle what's left of the organization, in exchange for immunity and witness protection." "But you're in handcuffs." "Theater. They need to make it look good, or the people who work for Tony will know something's wrong." His dark eyes held hers. "I'm getting out, Claire. Really out this time. Clean slate, new identity, somewhere far from here." But relief flooded through her, so intense it made her dizzy. "That's good. That's really good. But it means I can't protect you anymore. Once they process me out, I'll be gone. And Tony knows who you are now." The weight of that settled between them. "You need to tell these agents everything. Ask for protection. They'll put you in a safe house until they can round up Tony and his remaining people." "How long will that take?" "I don't know. Weeks, maybe. Months if he runs." Months in hiding. Months of fear, looking over her shoulder, wondering if every stranger was a killer sent to silence her. "There's another option," Nicholas said quietly. "What?" "Come with me." Claire's breath caught. "What are you talking about?" "Witness protection. They're relocating me anyway. One more person wouldn't be much harder to manage." He studied her face. "I know it's insane. I know we barely know each other. But it's the only way I can guarantee you'll be safe." "You want me to just disappear? Leave my whole life behind?" "What life, Claire?" His voice was gentle but honest. "You told me you came to Chicago 3 months ago. No family here. No real connections. A job you can get anywhere. I'm not saying it's an easy choice, but it's a safer one than trying to testify against Tony and hoping the FBI can protect you." The agent cleared his throat. "Sir, we need to move you." "1 minute." Nicholas didn't break eye contact with Claire. "I can't make this decision for you, but if you want to survive this, really survive it, you need to choose now. Stay here and take your chances with witness protection and eventually testifying, or come with me and start over completely." Claire's mind raced. Everything he was saying made a terrible kind of sense. She'd already lost her job. Her apartment wasn't safe. The life she'd been building in Chicago was built on foundations that had just been blown apart. But to leave everything? To trust this man she'd known for less than a week? She thought about the way he'd looked at her in the penthouse that first day. The way he could have killed her and didn't. The way he'd protected her even when it put him at risk. The way he'd brought her coffee and told her about his sister. "If I say yes," she said slowly, "what happens?" "We get processed separately. FBI arranges our relocations. We probably won't see each other again until we're wherever they send us." He paused. "And there's no guarantee they'll send us to the same place. They might decide it's safer to split us up." "Then why offer?" "Because I'm going to insist you're part of my package deal. I'm the one with the information they want. That gives me leverage." His expression softened. "And because you deserve a chance to actually live, not just survive." The lead agent was getting impatient. "DeLuca, time's up." "Claire," Nicholas said her name like a prayer. "Yes or no?" She should say no. Any rational person would say no. But Claire had learned over the past few days that rationality had limits when bullets were flying and your name was on a hit list. "Yes," she whispered. Something flickered in his eyes. Relief, maybe, or hope. "Tell Agent Morrison you want to be included in my protection package. Use those exact words. He'll know what it means." "Okay. And Claire?" Whatever happens next, whatever they ask you, tell them the truth. All of it. The only way this works is if you're completely honest. The agents pulled him to his feet. Claire watched them lead him toward the shattered doorway, his hands still cuffed, his posture straight and proud despite everything. Agent Morrison approached her. "Miss Bennett, we need to get you out of here. There's a lot of broken glass and we've got more personnel incoming." "I want to be included in Nicholas DeLuca's protection package," Claire said, the words coming out stronger than she felt. Morrison's eyebrows rose. "Excuse me? That's what he told me to say. I want witness protection, I want to be relocated, and I want it to be part of whatever deal he's making with you." The agent studied her for a long moment. "You understand what you're asking for? Witness protection isn't a vacation. It's permanent. You'd be leaving everything behind. I understand. And you'd be willing to testify against Anthony Russo and others in the DeLuca organization?" "If it means staying alive, yes." Morrison pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. "Wait here." The next 3 hours were a blur of questions, statements, and paperwork. They took Claire to a federal building downtown, put her in a small room with uncomfortable chairs and fluorescent lighting that made everything look sickly. Different agents cycled through, asking her to repeat her story over and over, looking for inconsistencies. She told them everything. The wrong room, Nicholas's face, the men who'd chased her, the safe house, her research, the decision to warn Nicholas about Russo. "That was incredibly stupid," one agent told her bluntly. "I know," Claire said. "But I'm still alive, so maybe it was also a little bit smart." Around hour 4, Morrison came back with coffee and what looked like sympathy. "Your story checks out. DeLuca confirmed everything you said. Is he okay?" "He's fine. Cooperative. We're processing him out now." Morrison sat down across from her. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. What's your relationship with Nicholas DeLuca?" Claire laughed, the sound brittle. "I don't know. A week ago, I didn't know he existed. Now I'm in witness protection because of him. What would you call that?" "I'd call it complicated." "Then that's your answer. It's complicated." Morrison drummed his fingers on the table. "He's insisting you be relocated with him. Same city, same protection detail. That's unusual. But possible." "Possible, yes. Smart?" He shrugged. "That depends on why you're agreeing to this. If you think you owe him something, you don't. If you're scared he'll hurt you if you refuse, we can protect you separately." "I don't owe him anything," Claire said, "and I'm not scared of him. I'm scared of the men who want both of us dead, and I figure my odds are better with someone who knows how they think." "Fair enough." Morrison stood up. "We'll need a few days to arrange everything. In the meantime, you'll stay in a secure location. No phone calls, no internet, no contact with anyone from your old life." "What about my things? My apartment?" "We'll send someone to pack up your essentials. Everything else gets left behind. That's non-negotiable." Claire nodded, feeling the weight of that sink in. Everything else gets left behind. Her books, her photos, the coffee maker she'd saved up 3 months to buy. All the small things that made a place feel like home. But she was alive. That had to count for something. They moved her that night to a safe house in the suburbs, a nondescript ranch house on a quiet street where American flags hung from porches and SUVs filled driveways. Her guard was a female agent named Chen who had kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. "You'll be here 3, maybe 4 days," Chen told her. "Then we move you to your permanent location." "Will Nicholas be there?" "That's above my pay grade, but I heard Morrison approved the joint relocation, so probably yes." Claire lay awake that night in a bedroom that smelled like lavender and strangers, staring at the ceiling and wondering what she'd done. This was real now. No going back. By this time next week, she'd be someone else entirely. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, she felt something unexpected. Relief. For 3 days, Claire existed in a strange limbo. She watched television without really seeing it, ate meals without tasting them. Chen checked on her regularly, bringing updates that were carefully vague. "Everything's proceeding on schedule. The relocation is still on track. No new threats." On the 4th day, Morrison returned. "Pack your bag," he said. "We're moving you tonight." "Where?" "Somewhere warm. Somewhere you can start over." He handed her a manila envelope. "Your new documentation. Birth certificate, social security card, driver's license. Study them on the flight. By the time you land, you need to be this person." Claire opened the envelope with shaking hands. The driver's license showed her face but a different name, Sarah Mitchell, born in Portland, Oregon. 26 years old. Sarah Mitchell, she said aloud, testing it. That's you now. Claire Bennett doesn't exist anymore. What about Nicholas? He'll be on the same flight, different seat, no contact until you're both in the new location. Once you're there, you'll share a protection detail, but maintain separate residences. Morrison's expression was serious. I need to be clear about something, Miss Mitchell. This isn't a romance novel. We're not setting you up to play house with a reformed criminal. We're giving you both a chance to survive and testify when the time comes. What you do beyond that is your business, but don't mistake this for anything other than what it is. I understand. Do you? Because once you're there, you're stuck. No coming back to Chicago, no contacting old friends or family. You slip up once, you lead Russo right to both of you. I said I understand. Morrison studied her for a moment, then nodded. Chen will drive you to the airport. Private terminal, unmarked plane. You'll be in the air in 2 hours. The drive to the airport passed in a haze. Claire watched Chicago slip past the windows, the city that was supposed to be her fresh start, now just another place she'd failed to make work. She'd come here with a suitcase and a dream. She was leaving with less than she'd arrived with. But she was leaving alive. The private terminal was small and quiet, just a handful of people moving through security. Chen walked her to a gate where a man in a suit waited. This is Agent Brooks, Chen said. He'll accompany you on the flight. What about Nicholas? Brooks gestured toward the plane visible through the windows. Already aboard. You'll board separately, sit separately. No communication until you're both secure in the new location. Can I at least see him? Know he's really there? Brooks exchanged a look with Chen, then sighed. 5 minutes. But you don't talk to him. They walked her onto the plane, a small private jet with leather seats and too much quiet. Nicholas sat near the back, staring out the window. He'd changed clothes, jeans and a dark sweater instead of the suit he'd worn at the hotel. Without the expensive tailoring, he looked younger, less dangerous. He turned when she entered, and their eyes met. Claire wanted to say something. Thank you, I'm scared. Are we insane? But Brooks was right there, and the rules were clear. So she just looked at him, trying to communicate everything she couldn't say out loud. Nicholas nodded slightly, and she saw her own fear and hope reflected in his expression. Then Brooks was guiding her to a seat at the front of the plane, and the moment broke. Buckle up, Brooks said. It's a 4-hour flight. Claire strapped herself in and pressed her forehead against the window. Below, Chicago glittered like a jewelry box, millions of lives playing out in those lights. Somewhere down there, Anthony Russo was planning his next move. Somewhere down there, her empty apartment sat waiting for a tenant who would never return. And somewhere behind her on this plane, Nicholas DeLuca was starting over, just like she was. The engines roared to life. The plane began to move. Claire closed her eyes and tried to imagine what came next. A new city. A new name. A new life built on the ashes of her old one. She'd come to Chicago looking for something better. Maybe she'd just found it, even if it looked nothing like she'd imagined. The plane lifted off, and Claire Bennett disappeared into the clouds. When they landed 4 hours later, the air was humid and smelled like ocean. Brooks led her down the steps onto a small private airstrip where palm trees swayed in the breeze. Welcome to Florida, he said. A woman waited at the bottom of the stairs. Short hair, professional suit, the kind of calm competence that suggested she'd seen everything twice. Sarah Mitchell? It took Claire a moment to respond to the name. Yes. I'm Agent Reeves. I'll be your primary contact here. We've got a car waiting. Claire glanced back at the plane, but Nicholas was still inside, presumably waiting his turn. When will I see him? She asked. DeLuca? Tomorrow. We're setting you both up in separate apartments tonight. Then we'll arrange a meeting to go over the ground rules. Reeves gestured toward a black sedan. For now, let's get you settled. The safe house they'd arranged for her was a small apartment in a beachside community, the kind of place where tourists came to forget their problems and locals worked 3 jobs to afford rent. Claire's unit was on the 2nd floor, overlooking a parking lot and a slice of ocean visible between buildings. It was nothing like the penthouse Nicholas had hidden her in, nothing like her cramped Chicago studio. It was just a place, neutral and temporary, waiting for her to make it into something more. You've got everything you need for the first week, Reeves said, showing her the stocked refrigerator and cabinets. After that, we'll set you up with a job and a stipend. Something low profile. You have any skills besides housekeeping? I can waitress. I'm good with people. Perfect. There's a restaurant 2 blocks from here that's owned by a friend of the bureau. They'll hire you, no questions asked. Reeves handed her a phone, new, pre-programmed with only essential numbers. My contact is in there. You need anything, you call, day or night. What about Nicholas? What about the other person? DeLuca will be close by. We're keeping you in the same area for now. Reeves's expression was hard to read. Morrison told me you asked to be placed together. Can I ask why? Claire sat down on the couch, exhaustion finally catching up with her. Because he's the only person who understands what I'm going through, because I'm scared and he's less scary than the alternative. Because... She trailed off. Because you care about him, Reeves finished. I don't know him well enough to care about him. Sometimes that's when it's easiest. Reeves moved toward the door. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. After she left, Claire wandered through the apartment, touching surfaces, opening cabinets, trying to make the space feel real. In the bathroom, she found toiletries laid out, generic brands, nothing personal. In the bedroom, clothes in her size hung in the closet, tags still attached. Someone had built a life for Sarah Mitchell. Now all Claire had to do was figure out how to live it. She didn't sleep that night. Just lay in the unfamiliar bed, listening to unfamiliar sounds. Car engines, distant music, the rhythmic crash of waves she couldn't quite see. Her mind kept returning to Nicholas. Somewhere in this same city, probably not sleeping either. Tomorrow she'd see him. Tomorrow, they'd figure out what came next. Tomorrow, Sarah Mitchell's life would really begin. Morning came too soon, washing the apartment in pale gold light that made everything look softer than it was. Claire, Sarah, she had to remember to think of herself as Sarah, stood under the shower and let the water run hot enough to hurt, trying to wash away the feeling that she'd made a catastrophic mistake. Agent Reeves arrived at 9 sharp, accompanied by a man she introduced as Marshal Torres. He had the weathered look of someone who'd spent years expecting the worst and rarely being disappointed. We need to go over some rules, Torres said without preamble. He sat at the small dining table and pulled out a folder thick with documents. Rule 1. You don't exist before 6 months ago. Sarah Mitchell moved here from Portland looking for work. You've got a full backstory in here. Memorize it. Where you went to school, where you worked, family details. Someone asks you a question. You answer from this script. Claire took the folder, flipped through pages of her manufactured history. Sarah Mitchell had worked at a coffee shop in Portland, had a mother who died of cancer 2 years ago. No siblings, no complicated past, just a simple, forgettable life. Rule 2, Reeves continued, you don't talk about Chicago, ever. Not to coworkers, not to neighbors, not to people you think you can trust. The moment you mention that city, you put a target on your back. What if someone recognizes me? What if... They won't, Torres said flatly. You're nobody, Miss Mitchell. No offense, but you're not famous. You're not remarkable. You're exactly the kind of person who can disappear without anyone noticing. It should have hurt, hearing it put so bluntly. Instead, Claire felt a strange comfort in the words. Being nobody meant being safe. Rule 3, Reeves said, you maintain minimal contact with DeLuca in public. We're allowing you to live in the same area because we think keeping you together reduces flight risk. But you're not a couple. You're not friends. You're 2 people who happen to be in the same protection program. What about private contact? Torres and Reeves exchanged a look that Claire couldn't quite read. We're not going to police what you do in your own time, Torres said carefully. But understand that every interaction is a risk. The more connected you are, the more vulnerable you both become. When do I see him? This afternoon. We're meeting at a neutral location to set expectations. Reeves stood up. In the meantime, Torres is going to run you through some basic security protocols. How to spot a tail. What to do if you think you've been compromised. Standard stuff. The next 3 hours were an education in paranoia. Torres taught her to watch for the same car appearing in multiple locations. Taught her to vary her routes, never establish patterns. Taught her that the price of safety was constant vigilance. By the time they drove her to the meeting location, a quiet park overlooking the ocean, Claire's head was spinning with protocols and procedures and what-ifs. Nicholas was already there, sitting on a bench beneath a palm tree watching the waves. He wore sunglasses and a baseball cap, the kind of anonymous tourist costume that made him blend into the Florida landscape. But Claire would have recognized him anywhere. Something about the way he held himself, the careful stillness that suggested coiled energy just beneath the surface. 30 minutes, Torres said. We'll be watching, but we'll give you space to talk. Claire approached the bench slowly, suddenly uncertain. What did you say to someone you'd agreed to run away with? Someone you barely knew, but whose face had become the most familiar thing in your new world? Hey, she said quietly. Nicholas looked up, and she saw her own uncertainty reflected in his expression. Hey, yourself. How'd you sleep? Didn't? She sat down beside him, maintaining a careful distance. You? Same. He pulled off the sunglasses and she saw the fatigue in his eyes. This is surreal. That's one word for it. They sat in silence for a moment, watching a jogger pass by, a couple walking their dog, all the normal people living their normal lives. I've been thinking, Nicholas said finally, about what Morrison said, that this isn't a romance, that we're just two people trying to survive. Yeah? He's right. We shouldn't pretend this is something it's not. He turned to face her. But I also think we need to be honest about what it is. You saved my life, Claire, twice. First by warning me about Tony, then by bringing the FBI's timeline forward. I owe you. You don't owe me anything. You saved me first. Then we're even. A ghost of a smile. Or we're both idiots who keep saving each other when we should be running. Probably that one. Nicholas reached out, hesitated, then let his hand rest on the bench between them. Not touching, but close enough that Claire could feel the warmth of his skin. I want to try something, if you're willing. Try what? Friendship. Real friendship. Not just two people thrown together by circumstances. His voice was careful, measured. I don't have many of those. Never did, really. The life I lived didn't leave room for people you could actually trust. But maybe here, maybe as someone else, I could learn. Claire looked at his hand on the bench, at the scars visible on his wrist where his sleeve had ridden up. Friendship seemed like such a small word for what they'd been through together, but maybe it was the right place to start. I'd like that, she said. Yeah? Yeah, but fair warning, I'm a terrible friend. I forget birthdays and I'm bad at keeping in touch, and I have a tendency to adopt stray cats even though I'm allergic. I've killed people, Nicholas said conversationally. So I think you're probably still ahead on the good friend scale. The casual way he said it should have shocked her. A week ago, it would have. But now Claire just nodded, accepting it as truth. We're a real pair, aren't we? The worst. But he was smiling, and for a moment he looked younger, less haunted. They got you set up with a job yet? Restaurant 2 blocks from my apartment. You? Marine repair shop near the docks. Apparently I have skills that transfer. He shrugged. I grew up around boats. My father had a yacht he used for business. Before everything went to hell, I thought maybe I'd get into sailing, actually do something with my hands instead of just signing orders. You can still do that. Here. Now. Maybe. He looked out at the ocean. It's strange, you know? I spent 3 years hiding who I was, but I was still in Chicago. Still running the organization from the shadows because I didn't know how to fully let go. And now I have to let go whether I'm ready or not. Are you ready? I don't know. Ask me in a year. He stood up, stretched. Torres is giving us the evil eye. I think our 30 minutes is up. Claire rose beside him. When will I see you again? I don't know. They want us to keep our distance for the first few weeks. He put the sunglasses back on, becoming anonymous again. But Claire, if you need anything, if you're scared, if something feels wrong, you call Reeves and you tell her. Don't try to handle it alone. Same goes for you. I've been handling things alone for a long time. Well, now you don't have to. Something shifted in his expression, visible even behind the dark lenses. I'm going to hold you to that. They walked back to where Torres and Reeves waited by separate cars. Claire watched Nicholas drive away, then climbed into Reeves's sedan for the ride back to her apartment. That went well, Reeves observed. Did it? You didn't cry, you didn't kiss him, and you didn't make any promises you can't keep. In my book, that's a win. Reeves navigated through traffic with practiced ease, You start at the restaurant tomorrow. Owner's name is Joe Mendez. He knows you're in the program, but he doesn't know the details. You're just Sarah Mitchell, new in town, looking for work. What if I'm terrible at waitressing? Then you'll fit right in. It's a tourist trap. Nobody expects Michelin star service. The restaurant was called The Sandpiper, and it was exactly what Reeves had promised: a casual beachside place with plastic chairs and laminated menus, and a view of the water that made up for the mediocre food. Joe Mendez was a bear of a man with kind eyes and a thick accent that suggested Cuba by way of Miami. "You ever waitress before?" he asked when Claire showed up for her first shift. "Back in Nebraska, small diner." "This ain't much bigger. You'll do fine." He handed her an apron and a notepad. "Tips are yours to keep. We split them at the end of the night. You got questions, you ask Rosa. She's been here longer than the building." Rosa turned out to be a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and a no-nonsense attitude that reminded Claire of Mrs. Chen. She showed Claire the sections, the computer system, how to handle the tourists who complained about everything and the locals who knew exactly what they wanted. "You running from something?" Rosa asked during a lull. Claire's heart skipped. "What?" "Relax, mija. Everyone who ends up here is running from something. Bad marriage, bad debts, bad choices. I don't care which one you are, just asking if you're going to disappear on us in 2 weeks when things get tough." "I'm not running from anything," Claire lied. "Just needed a fresh start." Rosa studied her with sharp eyes that missed nothing, then nodded. "Fresh starts are good. Just remember, you can't run from yourself. Whatever you're trying to leave behind, it follows you. Better to deal with it than keep running." The advice settled uncomfortably in Claire's chest. She spent the rest of her shift taking orders, delivering food, smiling at strangers who would never remember her face, being nobody, being Sarah Mitchell. It should have felt like freedom. Instead, it felt like drowning. That night, alone in her apartment with the sound of the ocean keeping her awake, Claire pulled out her phone and stared at Reeves's number. It would be so easy to call, to say she'd made a mistake, to ask to be relocated somewhere else. Somewhere without Nicholas and the complicated weight of their shared history. But she didn't call. Instead, she got up, made coffee she didn't drink, and watched the sun rise over the Atlantic. A new day, a new life. She just had to figure out how to live it. 2 weeks passed in a blur of routine. Claire worked her shifts at the Sandpiper, learned the regulars' names, banked her tips in an account Reeves had set up for her. She bought groceries from the corner market, learned to navigate the bus routes, became Sarah Mitchell, one small piece at a time. She didn't see Nicholas. Reeves checked in every few days, always casual, always watching. "You settling in okay? Any problems? Anyone asking questions?" Claire always said no, even though it was a lie. Even though she lay awake at night wondering where Nicholas was, if he was struggling like she was, if he regretted bringing her into this. On a Thursday afternoon, during a rare moment when the Sandpiper was empty between lunch and dinner rush, Rosa cornered her by the coffee station. "You got a man?" Claire nearly dropped the pot. "What? No. Why?" "Because you got that look, like you're waiting for something, or someone." Rosa poured herself a cup, added enough sugar to make Claire's teeth hurt. "I know that look. Had it myself once." "There's no one." Liar, but Rosa said it kindly. "None of my business anyway. Just saying, if there is someone, life's too short to waste time pretending there isn't." Before Claire could respond, the door chimed and a group of tourists came in, loud and sunburned and demanding. She threw herself into work, grateful for the distraction. But Rosa's words stayed with her. That evening, as she walked home along the beach road, Claire saw him. Nicholas sat on the seawall, feet dangling, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. He wore work clothes, jeans and a faded t-shirt, and his hands were stained with what looked like grease or paint. Claire's feet carried her toward him before her brain caught up. "Hey," she said. He turned and his face lit up with genuine pleasure. "Hey, how have you been?" "Surviving. You?" "Same." He gestured to the space beside him. "Sit." She shouldn't. They were supposed to keep their distance, but Claire was so tired of following rules that kept her safe, but made her feel like a ghost. She sat. "I like your new look," Nicholas said. She'd cut her hair shorter, let the Florida sun lighten it a few shades. Sarah Mitchell's transformation. Suits you. Thanks. You look different too. He'd shaved the stubble he'd had in Chicago, and his skin had darkened from working outside. How's the boat shop? Good. Honest work. I'm terrible at it, but I'm learning. He held up his hands, showing her the calluses forming. Never thought I'd say this, but there's something satisfying about fixing things instead of breaking them. That's very philosophical. I'm a changed man. He was smiling, but there was something serious underneath. I've been wanting to talk to you, ask you something. What? Are you okay? Really okay? He turned to face her fully. Because I know what Reeves and Torres told us. Keep our distance, stay separate. But if you're struggling, if you need someone to talk to who understands what this is like, I'm here. The offer cracked something open in Claire's chest. I'm not okay, she admitted. I'm lonely and scared, and I don't know who I am anymore. I wake up and forget my name. I catch myself almost telling customers stories about Nebraska that Sarah Mitchell has never been to. I feel like I'm disappearing. Yeah, Nicholas said quietly. Yeah, I get that. Do you? Feel like you're disappearing? Every day. But then I remember why we're here, what we survived. He looked at her with those dark, steady eyes. And I think maybe disappearing isn't the worst thing. Maybe it's a chance to become someone better. Who are you becoming? I don't know yet. Someone who works with his hands. Someone who doesn't carry a gun. Someone who maybe, eventually, sleeps through the night without nightmares. He paused. Someone who has a friend. Claire felt tears prick her eyes. I thought we weren't supposed to see each other. We're not supposed to be obvious about seeing each other. There's a difference. Nicholas pulled a piece of paper from his pocket, scribbled something on it, handed it to her. My address. It's not far from yours. If you want to talk, really talk, you can come by. No pressure, just an option. She took the paper, folded it carefully. Won't Reeves be mad? Probably. But I've been breaking rules my whole life. Might as well break a few good ones for once. He stood, brushed sand from his jeans. I have to go. Early shift tomorrow. But Claire, you're not disappearing. You're just becoming someone new. And that person is worth knowing. He walked away before she could respond, leaving her sitting on the seawall with the sunset and his address burning a hole in her pocket. 3 days later, Claire knocked on his door. The building was similar to hers, a converted motel turned low-rent apartments, the kind of place that catered to people who didn't ask questions. Nicholas answered wearing sweatpants and an old t-shirt, looking surprised and pleased. You came. You said I could. I did. Come in. He stepped aside, and she entered a space that was almost aggressively impersonal. Bare walls, minimal furniture. Nothing that suggested anyone actually lived there. Sorry about the mess. I'm not great at decorating. Neither am I. Claire sat on the small couch. My place looks like a hotel room. Because we're both still pretending this is temporary. Nicholas sat in the chair across from her. Like if we don't unpack, if we don't hang pictures, we can go back to who we were. Can we? Go back? No. But accepting that is harder than it should be. They talked for hours that night, about nothing and everything. About the weird things they missed. Nicholas said he craved deep dish pizza. Claire admitted she missed real snow. About their jobs, their new lives, the small victories of getting through each day without falling apart. I almost called Reeves last week, Claire confessed around midnight. Asked to be moved somewhere else. Why didn't you? Because the only thing worse than being lonely here would be being lonely somewhere else without even the possibility of you. Nicholas was quiet for a long moment. I'm glad you stayed. Me too, I think. It became a routine after that. Once a week, sometimes twice, Claire would show up at his door with takeout or coffee, and they'd talk. Never about Chicago. Never about the past that could get them killed. Just about the present, the small details of their manufactured lives, the slow process of becoming real people again. Rosa noticed the change in her. There is a man. Claire didn't deny it this time. It's complicated. The good ones always are. Rosa handed her a tray of drinks. Just be careful, mija. Complicated men can break your heart. I know. But knowing didn't stop her from knocking on Nicholas's door. Didn't stop the way her chest felt lighter when she saw him. didn't stop the slow, terrifying realization that she was falling for someone she barely knew but understood better than anyone. 6 weeks into their new life, Reeves showed up at the Sandpiper during Claire's shift. "We need to talk," she said, her expression grim. Claire's stomach dropped. "What happened?" "Not here. Finish your shift. I'll be waiting outside." The next 2 hours were agony. Claire spilled drinks, mixed up orders, nearly dropped a tray of food. Rosa finally pulled her aside. "Go," she said. "Whatever's wrong, go deal with it. I'll cover your tables." "I can't just leave. You're no good to me like this anyway. Go." Reeves was leaning against her car when Claire emerged. "Get in." They drove in silence to a coffee shop 3 miles away, far from anyone who might know Sarah Mitchell. Reeves ordered 2 cups, found a corner booth, and slid one across the table. "We have a problem," she said without preamble. "What kind of problem?" "The kind where Anthony Russo's people might know you're in Florida." The world tilted. "How?" "We're not sure yet. Could be a leak. Could be they got lucky. Could be you or DeLuca slipped up somewhere." Reeves's eyes were hard. "Have you been in contact with him?" Claire's mouth went dry. "Define contact. Have you seen him? Talked to him? Spent time with him against our explicit instructions?" There was no point in lying. "Yes." Reeves closed her eyes briefly, looking pained. "How often?" "Once or twice a week, at his apartment. We're careful. We don't go out together. We don't—" "It doesn't matter how careful you think you're being. Someone noticed. Someone always notices." Reeves pulled out her phone, showed Claire a grainy photo. 2 figures on a seawall at sunset. One was clearly Claire. The other could have been anyone, but Reeves had identified him. This was taken 3 weeks ago, posted on someone's Instagram with the caption, "Sunset Vibes." It got picked up by facial recognition software one of Russo's tech guys runs. Claire felt like she might throw up. "They know where we are?" "They know you're in Florida. That's a big state, and the photo doesn't give away much, but it narrows their search." Reeves pocketed her phone. "We're moving you, both of you, tomorrow." "Where?" "Somewhere without beaches. Somewhere you can't be spotted sitting on seawalls like you're on vacation." The anger in Reeves's voice was laced with something else. Disappointment. "You put both your lives at risk because you couldn't follow simple rules. We were careful. You were sloppy and selfish, and now we have to scramble to keep you alive." Reeves stood up. "Pack your things tonight. Someone will pick you up at 6 a.m. And Claire, this is your last chance. You screw up again. We can't protect you." The drive back to her apartment was silent. Claire felt numb, her mind unable to process what was happening. They were running again. Because of her. Because she'd been stupid enough to think she could have something normal. She called Nicholas as soon as she was inside. "They know," she said when he answered. "Russo's people. They know we're in Florida." A pause. "Reeves told you?" "She showed me a photo from 3 weeks ago on the seawall." "Damn." She heard him moving, the sound of drawers opening. "She's moving us?" "Tomorrow, 6 a.m. Claire sank onto her couch. "I'm sorry. This is my fault. I should have stayed away from you like they said." "Hey, stop." His voice was firm. "We both made this choice, and I don't regret it. Do you?" Did she? Regret the hours of conversation, the slow building of trust, the feeling that she wasn't completely alone in this nightmare. "No," she whispered, "I don't." "Then we pack our bags and we start over. Again, it's not ideal, but we're still breathing." A pause. "Can I see you before we go?" "Is that smart?" "Probably not, but I don't care anymore." 20 minutes later, there was a knock on her door. Claire opened it to find Nicholas standing there, and without thinking, without caring about rules or consequences, she stepped forward into his arms. He held her tight, his chin resting on her head, and for the first time in 6 weeks, Claire felt like she could breathe. "We're going to be okay," he said quietly. "How do you know?" "Because we have to be. Because I didn't survive 3 years in hiding just to let Tony Russo win now." He pulled back enough to look at her. "And because I'm not losing you. Not to him, not to anyone." The intensity in his voice made her heart race. "Nick, I know what this is supposed to be. I know what Morrison said, what Reeves says. But somewhere between that hotel room and here, you became the most important thing in my life." His hands came up to cup her face. "So we run. and we keep running, and we stay alive. Together. Claire couldn't find words, so she just nodded. They spent that night in her apartment, not sleeping, just talking in the darkness about everything they'd avoided before. He told her about his sister, about the night she died, about the 3 years he'd spent as a ghost. She told him about Nebraska, about the reasons she'd left, about the person she'd been before she became nobody. When dawn broke through the windows, they were sitting on the floor, shoulders touching, watching the sun rise over the ocean they were about to leave behind. "Ready?" Nicholas asked. Claire thought about everything she was leaving, the restaurant, Rosa, the apartment that had almost started to feel like home. But she looked at the man beside her, scarred and dangerous and somehow the safest thing in her world. And she knew the answer. "Yeah," she said, "I'm ready." The safe house in Montana was nothing like Florida. No ocean, no palm trees, no humid air that clung to your skin, just mountains, endless sky, and a silence so complete it felt like the world had forgotten they existed, which was exactly the point. Claire stood on the porch of the small cabin Reeves had arranged for her, wrapped in a jacket that barely cut the October chill, and wondered how many times a person could start over before they lost track of who they'd been in the first place. "You'll like it here," Reeves had said when she'd dropped Claire off 3 days ago. "It's quiet, safe, and there's no Instagram influencers looking for sunset photos." The dig had stung, but Claire couldn't argue. She'd been reckless in Florida. They both had, and now they were paying for it. Nicholas was somewhere close by. Reeves had promised that much, but Claire hadn't seen him since they'd boarded separate flights out of Tampa. The separation felt like punishment, and maybe it was. Her new job was at a diner in the nearest town, population 800. The kind of place where everyone knew everyone, which should have made her nervous, but somehow didn't. These people weren't looking for escaped witnesses or hidden criminals. They were just trying to survive the long Montana winters and make enough money to keep their ranches running. Claire's new name was Emma Harris. She'd memorized the backstory during the flight. Grew up in Oregon, parents dead, no siblings, came to Montana looking for peace and quiet. It was getting easier to slip into these manufactured identities, and that scared her more than anything. On her 4th night in Montana, there was a knock on her cabin door. She opened it to find Nicholas standing there, snow dusting his shoulders, his breath forming clouds in the freezing air. "Hey," he said. Claire's heart did something complicated in her chest. "You're not supposed to be here." "I know, but Reeves is in Denver for a few days, and I couldn't stay away anymore." He shifted his weight, suddenly uncertain. "Can I come in? It's freezing out here." She stepped aside and he entered, bringing the cold with him. The cabin was small, one room with a kitchenette, a sleeping area, and a wood-burning stove that was the only thing keeping the place from becoming an icebox. Nicholas moved to the stove, held his hands out to the warmth. "They put you in a cabin too?" Claire asked. "Yeah, about 5 miles from here. Middle of nowhere." He turned to face her. "I'm working at a ranch, fixing fences, feeding cattle, all the stuff I never thought I'd do." "How is it?" "Honest, hard. Good, I think." He pulled off his jacket, hung it on a hook by the door. "How about you?" "Slinging hash browns and coffee at the Trail's End Diner. The owner's name is Betty, and she reminds me of every tough grandmother who ever lived." Claire moved to the small kitchen, started making coffee out of habit. "It's fine. Quiet." "Too quiet?" "I don't know yet." She poured 2 cups, handed him one. "Nick, what are we doing? We keep breaking the rules, keep putting ourselves at risk, and for what?" "For this?" He gestured between them. "For not being completely alone in a world where we don't exist. But we almost got killed because of this. Because I couldn't follow simple instructions and stay away from you. And I couldn't stay away from you either, so we share the blame." Nicholas sat on the worn couch, and after a moment Claire joined him. "I've been thinking about what Morrison said, about this not being a romance, about us just being 2 people trying to survive." "Yeah?" "I think he was wrong. Or maybe he was right at the beginning, but it changed." Nicholas set his cup down, turned to face her fully. "Claire, somewhere between that hotel room and here, I fell for you, and I know that's complicated and dangerous and probably stupid, but it's true." The words hung in the air between them, too big and too real. "You can't," Claire whispered. "You don't even really know me." I know you risked your life to warn me about Tony. I know you ran up 42 flights of stairs because you thought you could save me. I know you're brave and kind and stronger than you think you are." He reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "I know that when I'm with you, I feel like maybe I can be someone worth being. That's enough. Nick, you don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know." He started to pull away, but Claire caught his hand. "I fell for you too," she said quietly. "Somewhere between being terrified of you and trusting you with my life. And you're right. It's complicated and dangerous and probably stupid. But it's also the most real thing I've felt since this whole nightmare started." Nicholas's expression transformed, hope and relief and something deeper flooding his features. He cupped her face in his hands, his thumb brushing across her cheekbone. "Can I kiss you?" She nodded, and he leaned in slowly, giving her every chance to change her mind. But Claire didn't want to change her mind. She wanted this. Wanted him. Wanted to feel something other than fear and loneliness. His lips met hers, gentle at first, then deeper as she responded. It felt like coming home and jumping off a cliff at the same time, terrifying and right in equal measure. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Nicholas rested his forehead against hers. "I've wanted to do that since Florida. Why didn't you?" "Because I was trying to be smart, trying to follow the rules." He laughed softly. "But I'm done with that. Life's too short to waste it pretending I don't care about you." They spent that night talking and kissing and planning a future that felt impossible but necessary. When Nicholas finally left, hours later, Claire stood at the window and watched him disappear into the darkness, her heart full and terrified in equal measure. The next few weeks fell into a careful rhythm. Nicholas would visit when he knew Reeves wasn't around, and Claire would pretend to the diner customers and Betty that she was alone in her cabin. They were careful, never in public together, never obvious, but in private, they built something that felt like the beginning of a real relationship. "Tell me something you've never told anyone," Nicholas said one night as they lay on her couch, her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. "I almost got married once, back in Nebraska. His name was David, and he was safe and predictable, and everything I thought I wanted." Claire traced patterns on Nicholas's shirt. "But then I realized that safe wasn't the same as happy, so I left, came to Chicago looking for something more." "Did you find it?" "I found you. I don't know if that counts as more or just different." "I'll take different." He pressed a kiss to her hair. "Your turn. Ask me something. Do you regret it? The life you left behind?" Nicholas was quiet for a long moment. "I regret Elena. Regret that she died because of choices I made. But the rest of it? The power, the money, the fear? No. That version of me was a monster waiting to happen. My father raised me to be his successor, taught me that power was the only thing that mattered. It took losing everything to realize he was wrong. What matters now? You. Building something honest. Waking up without blood on my hands." He shifted so he could see her face. "Making sure the woman I love survives long enough to build a life with me." Claire's breath caught. "You love me?" "Yeah. Is that okay?" She thought about all the reasons it shouldn't be okay. All the ways loving each other made them vulnerable, made them targets. But then she thought about the alternative, surviving alone, safe but empty. "It's more than okay," she whispered, and kissed him until the words didn't matter anymore. 2 months into Montana, Reeves showed up at the diner during Claire's shift. "We need to talk," she said, her expression unreadable. Claire's hands went cold. "What happened?" "Not here. Your place. 1 hour." The drive back to the cabin was torture. Claire's mind raced through possibilities, each worse than the last. They'd been found. Russo was coming. Someone had died. But when she arrived, Reeves was already there, and she wasn't alone. Marshal Torres stood beside her, and Nicholas was sitting on the porch steps, his face carefully blank. "What's going on?" Claire demanded. "We've been watching you," Reeves said without preamble. "Both of you. And we know you've been seeing each other despite our explicit instructions not to." Claire's stomach dropped. "We've been careful." "Not careful enough. Torres spotted DeLuca's truck here 3 times last week alone." Reeves crossed her arms. "We had a choice to make. Split you up, send you to opposite ends of the country, or accept that keeping you apart isn't working and adjust our strategy." "What does that mean?" Nicholas asked. "It means we're moving you again, together this time. One location, shared protection." Torres pulled out a folder. "But there are conditions. You follow every rule. You don't draw attention, and when we call you to testify against Russo and what's left of the DeLuca organization, you both show up." "When?" Claire asked. "When do we have to testify?" "Soon. FBI's been building their case, and they're almost ready to move." Reeves handed the folder to Nicholas. "You'll be the star witness. Your testimony will put away at least 15 people, including Tony Russo. And after that?" Nicholas flipped through the documents. "After we testify? After that, you're free. New identities for the last time. Somewhere even we won't know about, truly off the grid." Torres looked between them. "But that's only if you survive the trial, and if Russo's people don't find you first." "They won't," Nicholas said firmly. "Where are you sending us?" "Minnesota, small town on the Iron Range. We've got a house set up, jobs arranged, the whole package." Reeves pulled out keys. "You leave tomorrow, and this time you stay put. No more moving around. This is your final stop before the trial." After Reeves and Torres left, Claire and Nicholas sat on the porch in silence, watching the sunset behind the mountains. "Are you scared?" Claire asked. "Terrified." "You?" "Same." She leaned against him, drawing comfort from his solid warmth. "But at least we're terrified together." "There is that." Nicholas wrapped his arm around her shoulders. "Claire, if this goes wrong, if something happens during the trial, don't say it. I have to. If something happens to me, you take the protection deal and you disappear. You don't try to be heroic. You don't try to save me. You just run. I'm not leaving you. Promise me. If it comes down to it, you choose yourself." Claire pulled away so she could look at him. "I won't make that promise. Because if the situation were reversed, you wouldn't leave me either. That's different." "How?" "Because I've already lived a full life. Maybe not a good one, but a complete one. You're just starting. You deserve a chance to figure out who Emma Harris or Sarah Mitchell or whoever you become actually is." "I know who I am." Claire took his face in her hands. "I'm the woman who walked into the wrong hotel room and found you. I'm the woman who chose to run with you instead of hiding alone. I'm the woman who loves you enough to fight for the life we're building. That's who I am." Nicholas kissed her then, desperate and fierce, like he was trying to memorize the taste of her. When they broke apart, his eyes were bright with unshed tears. "I don't deserve you," he said roughly. "Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway." They left for Minnesota the next day, another flight, another car ride, another new beginning. The house Reeves had arranged was small but comfortable, a 2-bedroom cottage on the edge of a town so small it barely registered on maps. The Iron Range stretched around them, all forests and lakes, and the kind of quiet that felt like privacy instead of isolation. "It's nice," Claire said, exploring the rooms. "Homey. It's ours." Nicholas set their bags down in the master bedroom. "For however long we have." "Don't talk like that. We're going to testify. We're going to survive, and we're going to get our clean slate." Claire moved to the window, looked out at the forest. "We've made it this far. We can make it the rest of the way." "When did you become the optimistic one?" "When I decided I wanted a future with you more than I wanted to be safe." Their new jobs were simple. Nicholas worked at a hardware store in town, and Claire got hired at the local library. It was perfect. Quiet, low profile, exactly what they needed. The town accepted them easily. Just another young couple looking for a simple life away from the big city. At night, they'd make dinner together in the small kitchen, learning each other's rhythms and routines. Nicholas couldn't cook to save his life, so Claire taught him. She discovered he had a dry sense of humor that caught her off guard and made her laugh. He learned that she was terrible at mornings and needed at least 2 cups of coffee before she could function. They built a life. Fragile and temporary, but real. 3 months in Minnesota, and Claire almost forgot they were waiting for the other shoe to drop. Almost forgot that this peaceful existence was just an interlude before they had to face the men who wanted them dead. Then Reeves called. "Trial date set," she said without preamble. 6 weeks. You both need to be ready." Nicholas took the phone from Claire. What's the security situation? Heavy. We're bringing you both back to Chicago under guard. You'll testify, then we extract you immediately. Reeves's voice was tight. But Russo knows the trial is coming. He's going to make a move. Question is when. We'll be ready, Nicholas said, but his hand found Claire's and gripped tight. The next 6 weeks were torture. Every car that drove past the house too slowly. Every stranger who looked at them twice in town. Every phone call from Reeves with updates that never contained good news. They picked up 3 of Russo's guys trying to access your old FBI files, Reeves reported 2 weeks before the trial. We've got them, but it means Tony's actively looking for you. Can you protect us? Claire asked. We're trying, but you need to be smart. Don't go anywhere alone. Vary your routes. Trust your instincts. 3 days before they were scheduled to fly back to Chicago, Claire's instincts started screaming. She was closing up the library when she noticed the black sedan parked across the street. It had been there when she'd arrived that morning, and it was still there now. Different driver, though. She could see him through the window, pretending to look at his phone. Claire called Nicholas immediately. There's someone watching the library. Get inside, lock the doors. I'm coming to get you. Nick, what if... Just do it. Now. Claire retreated into the library, locked the front door, and called Reeves. The phone rang 6 times before going to voicemail. Reeves, it's Emma. There's a car watching the library. Black sedan, rental plates. I think they found us. She tried Torres next. Same thing. Voicemail. Through the window, Claire saw the sedan's door open. A man got out. Tall, broad-shouldered, moving with purpose toward the library entrance. Claire's heart hammered. She looked around frantically for another exit. The back door led to an alley, but if there was someone in the front, there was probably someone in the back too. The man tried the front door, found it locked, knocked. Emma Harris? I just need to ask you a few questions. Claire pressed herself against the wall, out of sight from the windows. Her phone buzzed. A text from Nicholas. 2 minutes away. Stay hidden. Another knock, harder this time. Miss Harris, I know you're in there. This'll be easier if you just open the door. The back door rattled. They were trying to trap her. Claire grabbed the heavy bookend from the checkout desk. Pathetic as weapons went, but better than nothing. She moved toward the back office, the only room with a door she could lock. Glass shattered. The man had broken the front window and was reaching through to unlock the door. Claire ran. She made it to the office and slammed the door just as she heard footsteps in the main library. Her fingers fumbled with the lock, finally getting it secured. The office had a window, but it was small and high up. Miss Harris, you're just making this harder. The man's voice was calm, almost friendly. Mr. Russo just wants to talk. Ask you some questions about your boyfriend. Claire dragged the desk chair to the window, climbed up, tried to force it open. It was painted shut. The doorknob rattled. Last chance to do this the easy way. Claire grabbed a stapler from the desk and smashed it against the window. The glass cracked but didn't break. She hit it again, harder, and it finally shattered. The office door splintered as someone kicked it. Claire was halfway through the window when hands grabbed her legs and yanked her back. She fell hard, the breath knocked from her lungs, the bookend flying from her grip. The man loomed over her and she saw his face clearly for the first time. Hard eyes. Professional. This wasn't some street thug. This was a killer. Nothing personal, he said, pulling out a gun. Just business. Claire closed her eyes. The gunshot was deafening in the small space. But she wasn't hit. Claire opened her eyes to find Nicholas standing in the doorway, his own weapon raised, and the man who'd grabbed her crumpling to the floor. You okay? Nicholas asked, his voice tight. Yeah, I think so. Claire scrambled to her feet. How did you... Back door was already open. Took care of the other guy. He grabbed her hand. We need to move. Now. They ran through the library, past the unconscious form of another man, the backup Claire had suspected, and out into the cold Minnesota night. Nicholas's truck was running at the curb, and they dove inside. Where are we going? Claire asked as Nicholas peeled away from the library. I don't know, somewhere safe. He pulled out his phone, tried Reeves again. Still no answer. Something's wrong. Reeves always answers. Always. What if she's compromised? What if Russo got to her? Then we're on our own. Nicholas took a sharp turn, heading for the highway. We need to get out of town. Get somewhere with people, witnesses, somewhere they can't make us disappear quietly. Chicago, Claire said suddenly. We go to Chicago. Show up for the trial early. Force the FBI to protect us. That's insane. Chicago's where Russo has the most power. It's also where the FBI has the most resources. And if we can make it to the courthouse, if we can get inside, he can't touch us. Claire looked at Nicholas. It's risky, but staying here is suicide. Those men knew where to find us. That means Russo knows everything. Nicholas's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Chicago it is, but we drive. Flying's too exposed. That's 18 hours. Then we better get started. They drove through the night, taking back roads and avoiding tolls, paying cash for gas and keeping to the speed limit. Every set of headlights behind them made Claire's heart race. Every rest stop could be an ambush. Nicholas kept trying to reach Reeves. By dawn, he'd left 12 messages. She's either dead or dirty, he said grimly as they crossed into Wisconsin. Either way, we're flying blind. We still have Torres. If Torres was clean, he'd have answered by now too. Nicholas rubbed his eyes. We need to assume the worst, that we're on our own until we reach Chicago. They stopped at a truck stop outside Madison for food and coffee. Claire was using the restroom when she heard it, a news report playing on the television above the counter. 2 federal marshals killed in what authorities are calling a coordinated attack on a witness protection safe house in Montana. The FBI is investigating possible connections to organized crime. No word yet on whether the witnesses were harmed. Claire's blood ran cold. She stumbled out of the restroom to find Nicholas white-faced, staring at the same broadcast. Montana, he said quietly. Our cabin. They think we're dead, Claire whispered. Reeves and Torres went back to check on us, and Russo's people were waiting. Nicholas grabbed her arm. We need to go, now. If they're reporting casualties, that means the FBI knows something went wrong. They'll be looking for us. They made it back to the truck and were pulling out of the parking lot when Claire saw it. A black sedan, identical to the one from the library, pulling in. Nick, I see it. He gunned the engine, shooting onto the highway. Hold on. The sedan followed. What happened next was a blur of adrenaline and terror. Nicholas drove like he was racing for their lives. Because he was. The sedan kept pace, drawing closer. Claire saw the passenger window roll down, saw the gun. Get down! Nicholas shouted. Claire ducked just as bullets shattered the rear window. Nicholas swerved, cutting across 2 lanes of traffic, horns blaring. The sedan followed, relentless. They were approaching downtown Madison, traffic getting heavier. Nicholas took an exit too fast, tires screaming, and plunged into the city streets. Call 911, he ordered. Tell them there's an active shooter. Claire's hand shook as she dialed. There's a car chasing us. They have guns. They're shooting. More gunfire. The truck's side mirror exploded. Nicholas took a hard right into a parking garage, racing up the levels. The sedan followed. At the top level, Nicholas slammed on the brakes and threw the truck into reverse. What are you doing? Claire screamed. Trust me. He backed up at full speed just as the sedan came around the corner. The impact was devastating. Metal screeching, glass shattering, the force of it throwing Claire against her seatbelt hard enough to bruise. When the world stopped spinning, Claire looked up to see the sedan crumpled against a concrete pillar, steam rising from its hood. Nicholas had used their truck as a battering ram. Out, Nicholas said, his voice steady despite the chaos. We go on foot. They abandoned the destroyed truck and ran, taking the stairs down 6 levels with their pursuers' shouts echoing behind them. At ground level, they burst out into a busy shopping district, blending into the crowd. Police are coming, Claire gasped. I can hear sirens. Good. Let them clean up the mess. We need to disappear. Nicholas pulled her into a department store, through the racks of clothing to the back exit. There'll be more. Russo won't stop with just one car. They spent the next 6 hours moving through Madison like ghosts, using every trick Nicholas knew from his years in hiding. They stole clothes from a laundromat, bought burner phones with cash, found a rundown motel that didn't ask questions. In the tiny, dingy room, Claire finally fell apart. They killed Reeves and Torres, she sobbed, because of us, because we couldn't just follow the rules and stay hidden. Hey, look at me. Nicholas pulled her into his arms. This isn't our fault. This is Russo's fault. He's the one killing people. He's the one who couldn't let go. But they died protecting us. And their deaths won't mean anything if we die too. We finish this, Claire. We get to Chicago, we testify, and we burn Russo's whole organization to the ground. That's how we honor them. Claire nodded against his chest, trying to find the strength to keep going. We're going to make it, Nicholas said firmly. I promise you. We're going to survive this and get our life back. She wanted to believe him, but as they lay in that terrible motel room, listening to sirens in the distance and waiting for dawn, Claire couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was still ahead of them. They reached Chicago 36 hours later, exhausted and running on nothing but fear and determination. Nicholas had traded the burner phone for information from a contact he swore he could trust, a former associate who owed him a life debt and had stayed clean after the organization fell apart. Russo's got people watching the courthouse, the contact had told him. FBI too, but Tony's got half the Chicago PD in his pocket. You show up, you're dead before you reach the steps. Well, then we don't go to the courthouse, Nicholas had said. We go straight to the source. Now they sat in a stolen car across the street from the federal building, watching armed guards patrol the entrance, and Claire wondered if they'd finally run out of options. This is crazy, she said. We can't just walk in there. We can't hide forever either. Russo found us in Minnesota. He'll find us again. Nicholas pulled out the phone, dialed a number he'd memorized. I'm calling the lead prosecutor, telling him we're here and we're ready to testify. He'll have to come get us. What if Russo's people are listening? Then we improvise. He hit dial. The call connected after 2 rings. Assistant U.S. Attorney Michael Chen. My name is Nicholas DeLuca. I'm supposed to testify in the Russo case, and I'm currently sitting outside your building with a very scared witness who's been shot at more times this week than she can count. We need protection, and we need it now. Silence on the other end. Then, how do I know this is really you? Because I can tell you exactly where Anthony Russo buried the bodies from the 2019 warehouse massacre, because I have documents proving he ordered the hit on Judge Matthews last year, because I'm the only person alive who knows the location of $50 million in offshore accounts. Nicholas's voice was steady, commanding. And because if you don't get us off this street in the next 10 minutes, Tony's going to kill the best witnesses you've got. More silence. Where exactly are you? Southeast corner, blue Honda. We're not moving until we see federal agents, not cops. Russo owns too many cops. Stay on the line. 7 minutes later, 4 black SUVs surrounded their car. Armed agents in tactical gear poured out, weapons drawn but not aimed. The lead agent approached carefully, signaling Nicholas to roll down the window. Nicholas DeLuca? That's me. I need you both to step out of the vehicle slowly. Keep your hands visible. They complied, and within seconds, Claire found herself being patted down by a female agent while Nicholas received the same treatment. The lead agent's radio crackled. Chen wants them brought in immediately. Full security protocol. They were ushered into the building through a side entrance, past metal detectors and armed guards, up an elevator that required a key card, and into a conference room that looked like it could survive a bomb blast. Michael Chen was waiting for them, a sharp-eyed man in his 40s who looked like he hadn't slept in days. 2 other agents flanked him, and Claire recognized one as Agent Morrison from what felt like a lifetime ago. Jesus Christ, Morrison said when he saw them. We thought you were dead. The reports from Montana. Were Russo's people making it look like we died in the attack that killed Reeves and Torres? Nicholas finished. Where's the rest of your protection team? Dead or compromised. We've had 3 leaks in the last month alone. Someone in the Marshal Service is feeding information to Russo. Chen sat down heavily. Which is why we're keeping you here, in the federal building, under guard, until the trial starts tomorrow. Tomorrow? Claire's voice cracked. The trial's tomorrow? We moved it up. Too many security issues, too many threats. Judge agreed to fast-track it. Chen pulled out a thick folder. We need your statements. Everything you know, everything you saw. And then you're both going into a secure room until it's time to testify. The next 12 hours were a blur of depositions and interviews. Nicholas laid out the entire structure of what remained of the DeLuca organization, naming names, providing evidence, destroying any remaining loyalty to the people who'd once called him their leader. Claire told her story: the wrong room, the fear, the running, the men who'd tried to kill her. "You're incredibly brave," Chen told her during a break. "Most people would have folded under this kind of pressure." "I'm not brave," Claire said. "I'm just too stubborn to die." Chen smiled. "Stubbornness works too." By midnight, they were done. An agent led them to a secure room with 2 beds, a bathroom, and nothing else. No windows, no outside communication, just walls and silence and the weight of what was coming. "Try to sleep," the agent said. "You'll need your strength tomorrow." After he left, Claire sat on one of the beds and started shaking. Everything that had happened over the past weeks crashed over her at once. The men with guns, the car chase, Reeves and Torres dying because they'd tried to protect 2 people who couldn't follow simple rules. Nicholas sat beside her, pulled her into his arms. "We're almost through this. What if I freeze up there? What if I can't testify?" "You will, because you're stronger than you know." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "And because I'll be right there with you. They'll try to kill us. Russo won't let us make it out of that courthouse alive." "Probably not. But we've survived everything else he's thrown at us. We can survive this too." Nicholas tilted her chin up so she had to meet his eyes. "Claire, listen to me. Tomorrow, no matter what happens, you do exactly what the agents tell you. If they say run, you run. If they say hide, you hide. Promise me." "Only if you promise the same thing." "I promise." They lay down together on one of the narrow beds, fully clothed, holding each other in the darkness. Claire didn't think she'd sleep, but exhaustion pulled her under, and when she woke, it was to the sound of agents knocking on the door. "Time to move," Morrison said. "Trial starts in 2 hours." They were given clothes to change into. Claire, a simple blue dress that made her look like exactly what she was, a frightened civilian caught in something beyond her control. Nicholas wore a dark suit that transformed him back into the man she'd first seen stepping out of that hotel shower, commanding and dangerous. "You look good," she told him as they waited in a staging area beneath the courthouse. "You look terrified." "I am terrified." "Good. Use it. Let the jury see what Russo put you through." Nicholas took her hand. "Remember, just tell the truth. That's all you have to do." The courthouse had been transformed into a fortress, snipers on the roof, armed guards at every entrance, metal detectors and bomb-sniffing dogs, and enough security to protect a head of state. Chen had been right. They were taking no chances. Nicholas testified first. Claire watched on a monitor from the secure room as he took the stand, raised his right hand, and swore to tell the truth. He was calm, articulate, devastating. He detailed every crime, every murder, every dark corner of the organization he'd once been destined to lead. The jury hung on his every word. Russo's defense attorney tried to shake him. "Isn't it true that you were deeply involved in criminal activity yourself, Mr. DeLuca?" "Yes." "And you expect this jury to believe the testimony of a confessed criminal?" "I expect this jury to believe the evidence, the documents I've provided, the financial records, the testimony of other witnesses who corroborate everything I've said." Nicholas's eyes found Russo across the courtroom. "I'm not asking for redemption. I'm asking for justice. There's a difference." When it was Claire's turn, Morrison walked her to the courtroom. "You've got this, just like we practiced." But nothing could have prepared her for the moment she stepped into that room and saw Russo sitting at the defense table. He looked like any other businessman in an expensive suit, but his eyes when they met hers were cold and promised death. Claire's legs nearly gave out. Then she saw Nicholas sitting in the gallery behind the prosecution table. He nodded slightly, and somehow that was enough. She took the stand. The prosecutor, a woman named Sarah Kim, approached with a gentle smile. "Miss Bennett, can you tell the court how you first encountered Mr. Russo's criminal organization?" Claire took a breath and began. She told them about the wrong room, the scared girl who'd stumbled into a nightmare. Told them about the men who'd chased her through Chicago's streets, the fear that had consumed her for months. Told them about Reeves and Torres, good people who'd died trying to protect her from a monster. "And why are you here today?" Kim asked. "You could have disappeared, gone into hiding permanently. Why risk your life to testify?" Claire looked at Russo. "Because he needs to be stopped. Because people like him think they can destroy lives without consequences. Because I'm tired of being afraid. Russo's attorney was less gentle. Isn't it true, Miss Bennett, that you've been in a romantic relationship with Nicholas DeLuca throughout this entire ordeal? Yes. And isn't it possible that you're testifying not because you witnessed any actual crimes, but because you want to protect your boyfriend? I'm testifying because men with guns tried to kill me multiple times, because federal agents died protecting me from Mr. Russo's people, because the truth matters more than my fear. Claire's voice grew stronger. You want to make this about my relationship with Nick? Fine. Yes, I love him. Yes, I'd do anything to protect him, but I wouldn't lie under oath. I wouldn't send an innocent man to prison. Anthony Russo is not innocent. The testimony lasted another hour. By the time Claire stepped down, she was shaking with adrenaline and relief. Morrison met her at the door. You were perfect, he said. The jury believed every word. How long until they deliberate? Closing arguments are this afternoon. Could have a verdict by tomorrow. They were escorted back to the secure room to wait. Nicholas pulled Claire close the moment the door closed. You were incredible up there, he said into her hair. I thought I was going to throw up. You hit it well. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. It's almost over. Just the verdict, and then we're free. But freedom, Claire was learning, was never that simple. The attack came at sunset. Claire and Nicholas were having dinner in the secure room, terrible sandwiches and coffee that tasted like burnt rubber, when the lights went out. Emergency backup kicked in immediately, bathing everything in red. What's happening? Claire asked. Nicholas was already on his feet, moving to the door. It was locked from the outside, security protocol. He pounded on it. Morrison, what's going on? No answer. Then they heard it. Gunfire, shouting. The sound of something heavy hitting the floor. Get in the bathroom, Nicholas ordered. Lock the door. Don't come out until I tell you. I'm not leaving you, Claire, please. If they get through that door, I need you safe. I need to know you're going to survive this. The bathroom door was reinforced steel. Claire locked herself inside, pressed her ear against it, and listened to her heart hammer against her ribs. More gunfire. Closer now. The main door to their room exploded inward. Through the crack beneath the bathroom door, Claire saw shadows moving, heard Nicholas's voice, steady and calm. Tony, I wondered when you'd make your move. You always were predictable, Nick. Russo's voice, smooth and deadly. Did you really think your testimony would put me away? I own half the people in this building. The other half will be here any second. The other half are dead or running. I brought 20 men. How many agents do you think are left? Claire's hand shook as she pulled out the burner phone Morrison had given her for emergencies. She dialed 911, whispered their location, begged for help. You don't have to do this, Nicholas was saying. You've already lost, Tony. Even if you kill me, the evidence is out there. The jury's already heard it. You're finished. Maybe, but at least I'll have the satisfaction of watching you die. A pause. Where's the girl? Long gone. Feds evacuated her when the shooting started. Liar, she's here. I can feel it. Footsteps moving closer to the bathroom. Come out, Claire. Make this easy. Claire pressed her hand over her mouth to keep from making a sound. She's not here, Nicholas said again. It's just you and me, Tony, like it should have been from the start. The bathroom door shuddered under impact. Someone was trying to kick it in. Claire looked around frantically for a weapon. Anything. Her hand closed on the heavy porcelain lid of the toilet tank. She lifted it, positioned herself beside the door. Another kick. The lock was starting to give. I'm sorry about Elena, Russo said conversationally. That wasn't supposed to happen. The bomb was meant for you. I know, doesn't make her any less dead. True, but you should have stayed dead too. Should have accepted the gift I gave you and disappeared forever. Instead, you come back, you betray everyone, you think you can just walk away clean? Russo laughed. There's no walking away from this life, Nick. You know that. The bathroom door splintered. Claire swung the porcelain lid with everything she had. It connected with someone's head, not Russo, one of his men, and the man went down hard. There you are, Russo said, appearing in the doorway. He had a gun pointed at her chest. Hello, Claire. We finally meet properly. Stay away from her, Nicholas's voice deadly calm. Or what? You're unarmed, outmanned, and out of time. Russo gestured with the gun. Come out of there, Claire. Let's end this. Claire stepped out of the bathroom, her makeshift weapon useless against firearms. Russo grabbed her arm, pulled her against his chest, the gun now pressed to her temple. Here's how this is going to work, Russo said. I'm going to kill Claire while you watch. Then I'm going to kill you. Then I'm going to walk out of here and disappear before the real FBI shows up. My men have already planted evidence that'll make this look like a shootout between rival gangs. No one will ever know the truth. Except the jury, Nicholas said. They know. The judge knows. Chen knows. You can kill us, but the truth's already out there. Then I'll be a rich man in a country without extradition. I've planned for every contingency. Russo's grip tightened on Claire. Any last words? Yeah. Claire drove her elbow back into Russo's ribs, using every ounce of strength she had. It wasn't much, but it was enough to make him stumble, the gun moving away from her head for just a second. Nicholas moved like lightning, closing the distance between them. He grabbed Russo's gun hand, twisted hard, and the weapon went flying. The two men collided, a brutal tangle of fists and fury. Claire scrambled for the gun, but one of Russo's men grabbed her from behind. She fought, kicked, screamed, and then Morrison appeared in the doorway, his weapon raised. Federal agent, drop your weapons! The man holding Claire let go and ran. Morrison shot him before he made it 3 steps. More agents poured into the room. The tide was turning. Russo's men were falling, surrendering, being cuffed and dragged away. But Russo and Nicholas were still fighting, locked together in savage combat. Russo pulled a knife from somewhere, slashed at Nicholas's face. Blood bloomed across Nicholas's cheek, but he didn't slow down. He drove Russo back against the wall, his hands around the other man's throat. Nick, stop! Claire screamed. You'll kill him! He deserves to die, Nicholas growled, but his grip loosened slightly. He deserves to rot in prison for the rest of his life. Don't give him the easy way out. Claire moved closer, her hand on Nicholas's arm. Don't let him turn you back into the man you were. You're better than this now. For a long, terrible moment, Nicholas didn't move. Then he released Russo, who collapsed to the floor, gasping. Morrison and 2 other agents immediately cuffed Russo. Anthony Russo, you're under arrest for attempted murder of federal witnesses, murder of federal agents, and about 50 other charges that'll keep you locked up until you're 100. Russo laughed, blood streaming from his nose. You think this is over? I have lawyers who will have me out by tomorrow. Not this time, Chen said, appearing in the doorway. Your lawyers are already under investigation. Your accounts are frozen. Your safe houses are being raided as we speak. You're done, Tony. As they dragged Russo away, Claire threw her arms around Nicholas. He held her tight, his blood staining her dress, both of them shaking with adrenaline and relief. It's over, she whispered. It's really over. Yeah, Nicholas said roughly. It is. The trial reconvened the next day. Russo's defense team tried to claim the attack proved nothing, but the jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. Claire watched Russo's face as the verdict was read. No emotion, no reaction. Just the cold acceptance of a man who'd gambled everything and lost. The defendant will be remanded into custody pending sentencing, the judge said. This court is adjourned. Outside the courthouse, with armed agents forming a protective circle around them, Morrison handed Nicholas and Claire new folders. Your final identities, he said. We're sending you somewhere Russo's remaining people will never find you, somewhere you can actually build a life. Where? Claire asked. Can't tell you until you're on the plane. Security. Morrison's expression softened. But I picked it myself. You'll like it. What about the people who helped Russo? The leaks in the Marshal's service. Already being handled. The Attorney General is personally overseeing the investigation. Morrison held out his hand to Nicholas. You did good, DeLuca. Both of you. Nicholas shook it. Thank you for everything. Thank Reeves and Torres. They're the ones who believed in this plan from the beginning. The flight left that night. A small private plane, just Claire and Nicholas, and 2 agents who didn't speak. As they lifted off, Claire watched Chicago disappear beneath them. All those lights and memories and near-death experiences fading into the darkness. Any guesses where we're going? She asked Nicholas. Somewhere warm, I hope. I'm done with snow. 3 hours later, they landed in a place that was definitely warm. The air smelled like salt and flowers, and when they stepped off the plane, Claire saw palm trees silhouetted against a star-filled sky. "Welcome to the Virgin Islands," one of the agents said. "Your new home." They were driven to a small house on the edge of a quiet beach, white sand and turquoise water stretching as far as Claire could see. The house was simple but beautiful, with wide windows that let in the ocean breeze and a porch that overlooked the water. "It's perfect," Claire breathed. "The island's small, the community's tight-knit, and there's zero organized crime presence," the agent explained. "You'll both have jobs lined up. Nicholas, there's a boat charter company that needs a captain. Claire, the local school needs a librarian. Your names are Michael and Emma Cole, married for 3 years, moved here to escape the rat race." After the agents left, Claire and Nicholas stood on the porch and watched the moon rise over the ocean. "Michael and Emma Cole," Claire said, testing the names. "Think we can make those people real?" "I don't know, but I want to try." Nicholas turned to face her. "I want to marry you. Really marry you, not just pretend for a cover story. I want to build a life here that's actually ours." Claire's breath caught. "Is that a proposal?" "It's a promise. That I'm done running, done hiding, done being anyone other than the man who loves you." He took her hands. "I know we've been through hell. I know this started because you walked into the wrong room at the wrong time. But Claire, you're the best thing that's ever happened to me. You made me want to be better. You made me believe I could be better." Tears streamed down Claire's face. "Yes. Yes? Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, I want to build a life here. Yes to all of it." She kissed him, tasting salt and promise and hope. "We survived, Nick. Against all the odds, we survived." "We did, and now we get to do more than survive. We get to live." They were married a month later in a small ceremony on the beach, with the handful of friends they'd made on the island as witnesses. Claire wore a simple white dress and flowers in her hair. Nicholas wore linen pants and a shirt and a smile that made him look like a different person entirely. The woman who'd rented them the house baked the cake. The man who ran the boat charter company officiated. It was small and intimate and perfect. That night, lying in bed in their little house with the sound of waves outside, Claire traced the scars on Nicholas's chest, each one a story of violence and survival. "Do you ever miss it?" she asked. "The power, the control." "Never. That life was a prison I didn't know I was in until I got out." He caught her hand, pressed a kiss to her palm. "This is freedom. You are freedom." 6 months later, Nicholas was teaching tourists to sail while Claire organized reading programs for island kids. They'd made friends, joined the community, built something real and honest and theirs. One afternoon, Claire came home from the library to find Nicholas on the porch with a letter in his hand. "What is it?" she asked. Rousseau's sentencing came through. Life without parole. 97 years. Nicholas set the letter down. "It's really over. It was over the day we got on that plane." "I know, but this makes it official." He pulled her into his lap. "No more looking over our shoulders. No more waiting for the other shoe to drop. Just us and this life we've built." Claire rested her head on his shoulder and looked out at the ocean. "You know what the crazy thing is? If I hadn't walked into that wrong room, none of this would have happened. I'd still be in Chicago, probably still working at the Sinclair, living in that tiny apartment, thinking that was enough. And I'd still be hiding, still running the organization from the shadows, still trapped in my father's legacy." Nicholas tightened his arms around her. "We saved each other, Claire. You saved me first by reminding me what it meant to choose mercy. I saved you by giving you a reason to be brave, and then we just kept saving each other until we ended up here. I like where we ended up." "Me too." A year after they arrived on the island, Claire discovered she was pregnant. The news terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. She told Nicholas on the beach at sunset, the same spot where they'd been married. "We're going to have a baby," she said. Nicholas went very still. "A baby. I know it's scary. I know we're still figuring out who we are. But Nick, I want this. I want a family with you. I want to build something that's completely ours. A baby," he said again. And then he was laughing and crying and spinning her around. "We're having a baby." They named her Elena, after the sister Nicholas had lost. She was born on a bright morning with the ocean breeze coming through the hospital windows, and her parents holding each other and crying with joy. "She's perfect," Claire whispered, cradling their daughter. "She's hope," Nicholas said, "proof that something good can come from all that darkness." 3 years after leaving Chicago, Claire stood in their backyard watching Nicholas teach Elena to swim in the inflatable pool he'd set up. Their daughter's laughter filled the air, bright and fearless and free. Claire thought about the scared girl who'd walked into room 4227 and how that single mistake had changed everything. She thought about Reeves and Torres, who'd given their lives so she could have this moment. She thought about all the running and fear and near-death experiences that had led her here. And she was grateful. Not for the violence, not for the trauma, but for the second chance. For the man who'd chosen mercy when he could have chosen murder. For the love they'd built out of impossible circumstances. For the family that proved redemption was possible. Nicholas looked up, caught her watching, and smiled. The scars on his face had faded but would never completely disappear. They were part of his story, part of who he'd been and who he'd become. Elena splashed water at her father, and he pretended to be mortally wounded, falling dramatically to the grass. Their daughter's giggles were the best sound Claire had ever heard. This was the life they'd fought for, the life they'd survived for. And it was more than either of them had ever dared to dream. That evening, after Elena was asleep, Claire and Nicholas sat on their porch with glasses of wine, watching the stars come out over the ocean. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you'd killed me that first day?" Claire asked. "If you'd followed your instincts instead of letting me go?" "Every day. And every day I'm grateful I didn't." Nicholas reached for her hand. "You know what I think? I think some part of me knew that you were going to be the one who saved me from myself. That's why I let you walk away. Or maybe you were just having a good day. Maybe. But I prefer my version." Claire laughed, leaning into him. "Your version is more romantic. I'm a romantic now. You turned me into one. I turned you into a lot of things. Boat captain, father, law-abiding citizen. You turned me into someone who deserves this life. That's the best thing anyone's ever done for me." They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that only came from truly knowing someone, from surviving everything the world could throw at you and coming out stronger on the other side. Claire thought about writing it all down someday. Their story. Not for publication, that would be too dangerous, but for Elena. So she'd know where she came from, so she'd understand that sometimes the worst mistakes led to the best outcomes. That love could grow in the darkest places. That people could change if they wanted it badly enough. But that could wait. For now, Claire was content to simply live it. To wake up each morning beside the man she loved. To raise their daughter in this peaceful place. To build a future that wasn't haunted by the past. The wrong room had led her to the right life. And that was more than enough.